Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
It's going great. How are you doing today?
Cannot complain. It's a beautiful day outside. I think after this, I'm going to go to a restaurant, maybe grab some dinner with my fiance and my dog, and just take in the beautiful weather that's here in Louisville, Kentucky.
That's definitely nice. It'll be nice for you guys to get out for sure.
Oh yeah, no, it's been a good week. I'm pretty happy about it, and I think the week ended on a phenomenal note with our guest today, actually, who's Trevor McGregor. For those of you guys who don't know, he's actually been a coach of mine over almost a year now, which is crazy to think. But he's actually a master platinum coach, Trevor McGregor International. Used to be one of the top coaches with Tony Robbins for several years before branching off and doing his own thing. As part of the episode today, we're really focused on mindset, really understanding the mindset of a high performer, and then how do you replicate that in your own life to achieve whatever success you want to in this lifetime. So we talked a lot about the proper mindset of achieving high performance, understanding how the coaching relationship is a benefit to you. As a coach, he's dealt with hundreds, if not thousands of people across the country and has seen the progress they've made in their life as a result of them interacting with him as a coach. And as someone who's had a coach for many, many years, I can attest to also the value that is achieved of having that coaching relationship. So we talked a little bit about some of those benefits. And next, we talked a little bit about some of the common obstacles that high performers struggle with, in particular those who are looking to invest in commercial real estate. Because again, it's an industry that historically is one that a lot of people don't really know how to get into and break into and really scale within that business. And so we talk about some of the ways that you can overcome those limiting beliefs. And then finally, we talked about just some of the advice that he would share with those who are just getting started in their real estate career as someone who has been in the career, on that career path for many, many years. And rounding out the podcast was really just phenomenal. Jeff, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
Not really. I think you covered all the bases there. Trevor is just an amazing guy. And he loves what he does when he comes to coaching, and especially in the real estate aspects. He just has a wealth of knowledge on all aspects of that. And he gives out helpful things that you guys really need to listen to this episode if you want to further your career path in real estate investing.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff, for those insights. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the podcast. All right. Hey, Trevor, how's it going? Good seeing you as always.
Good to see you, my brother. And I'm just blessed and grateful to be here. Things are going very, very well.
That's awesome. Yeah. And for those of you guys who don't know, I've actually been working with Trevor and a good friend of ours, Tyler Chesser, in their coaching program. So I got to know Trevor quite a bit over the last, it's almost been a year now, which is crazy to think, but he's really just an awesome individual and has a lot to contribute. So I'm really excited to dive into this episode today.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be here and excited to share as much as I can with you and the listeners. And let's dive right in.
Sure. So as far as the introduction goes, what we usually do is we like to learn a little bit more about the person that's across the table from us. So if you don't mind kind of sharing who you are and what got you interested in the real estate business.
Well, thanks very much. So again, Trevor McGregor, I am Canadian. You'll probably hear it from my voice and a few words that come out of this mouth, but, grew up, went to college, studied business, went to work for corporate, kind of cut my teeth in the corporate arena like most people do. And, I was trading time for dollars and really, really working for the man. And one day I got this opportunity to invest in the company that I was working for. And so what did I do? Well, I took all of my savings and I put it in a pile, and then I cashed in all of my 401k and put it in that pile. And I even convinced my own parents to take out a second six-figure mortgage on the family home because they really believed in me. And I thought, man, this is my chance to, put money into this thing and retire rich and young. And so we put all of that money into the pile and we shoved that pile into this big expansion plan in corporate. And for the first year and a half, it went really well until it didn't. And then it all went south, went downhill. And I lost all of that money that I put into that expansion, all of it, every cent. So there I was in my early 30s wondering, gosh, how am I ever going to pay off my loans and, start filling up my bank account, let alone pay my parents back? And it was really a coach that I had hired at that time that said, Trevor, you're still a young guy. What's happened to you is unfortunate, but you're married. You got 2 cute kids. How are you going to reinvent yourself to go make this money back and pay off these loans? And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said one thing to me, guys. He said, have you ever thought of investing in real estate? I said, real estate? I don't know that much about real estate. He said, you can literally use other people's money, buy properties, fix them up, either sell them or refi them, and then just continue the process. So, my back was up against the wall and I really didn't have any other options. And that's what I did. I borrowed some other money off of other friends and I literally bought one townhouse. That was a great experience. And I fixed it up and kept it, refied it, bought my first condo. Same thing, did it, rinsed and repeated it. And then I bought my first duplex. And guys, I don't know if you've ever, kind of figured out what cash flow was, but that's when the lights started to go on that, wow, I could really, really do a lot better if I did more duplexes. So I started buying more duplexes, then fourplexes, picked up some single family homes. That eventually led me to multifamily. And literally within 2.5 years of doing that, I had paid off all of my failed loans, including my parents. And that's really when I became, pretty much not quite a full-time investor, but I knew that investing would be a huge part of my life.
That's awesome. Yeah. And people come to the realization that real estate is that type of vehicle for them at different stages. I think there's so many resources out there now. Back in the day, there wasn't nearly as many. I mean, Bigger Pockets has been an inspiration for a lot of people, especially back when I was doing research on real estate as an investment opportunity. It was really instrumental in me understanding that, this is really an option that is available to the average people. It's not something that, you need millions and millions of dollars to actually pursue. And so it's great to hear the story that you had and your background and kind of educate people on really the thought process you had at that time, because your back was against the wall. You had a lot of debt and that's scary. And, so it's great to hear that.
Thank you for that. And again, hindsight being what it is, guys. And obviously I've gone on to, not only become fairly successful in real estate, but teach others how to be successful, because the real estate led me to sharing what my, journey was like with other people, right? It was literally my son's baseball coach that said, Trevor, how are you doing this? How are you buying all these properties? And I said, well, buy me a beer, sit me down, and I'll share everything with you and your wife. And that's exactly what happened. And within 30 days, they had gone out and bought their first rental property. Within 60 days, they bought 2. And within 6 months, they owned 3 single family properties that they were renting. And that, got them on the path to, becoming literally millionaires. And from there, people just kept coming to me. And that's when I started to really feel the coaching bug. And that's when I literally became a coach, ended up going to work with the man, the myth, the legend, Tony Robbins, became one of Tony's top coaches to send real estate people to. And from there, it's kind of blown up where I spent 5 great years working with Tony Robbins, an amazing experience, an amazing human being. And then I left Tony to form my own company, Trevor McGregor International, where now I predominantly help other people absolutely build enormous real estate empires. So between the coaching, the consulting, my own real estate stuff, and some of the impact investing we do, it's a fun arena for me to play in, and I absolutely love it.
I was listening earlier, and you said you hired a coach, and it led you to this path. And then I knew that you were a coach, so that was one of the questions I was going to ask you is what made you decide, and over a beer, I guess, that helping out a friend, and how important is it on like the proper mindset to achieve like high performance?
Well, I love that question, Jeff. Thank you so much. And my coach, my mentor, Tony Robbins, says that success is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics, or what you go and do. And it's absolutely true, because if you don't get this straight, right, this 3-pound mass between your ears called your brain, it's a lot tougher to go out there and crush it in real estate, because we all have limiting beliefs. We all have doubts. We all have fears. We all get anxiety. So without being able to move through that and take what I call a new position of authority over some of that stuff, right, it can take people a lot longer to achieve success when, I'm here to help other people turn what we call decades into days. I don't want it to take 10 years for somebody to figure out all the ins and outs of investing or, researching markets, underwriting. And it doesn't matter if it's single family, multifamily, commercial, industrial, mobile home parks, assisted living. I've got clients in 37 different US states right now. That's a statistic. And they're all doing something different, but all with the belief that, real estate is the greatest wealth vehicle to make impact. And where there's impact, we can make a lot of income. So it's absolutely a playground that not only do I play in myself, but I help tens of thousands of other people. And in fact, I just crossed the 30,000 coaching mark, where I've had over 30,000 coaching sessions. And that too is an actual statistic.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that just shows your dedication to the profession. And not only that, but like you said, related to mindset, I started working with a coach back right when I was about 24 years old. I'd just gotten into the software field, and, I knew that I was doing okay, but inside I didn't feel like I was really achieving my true potential. And so having that external person to kind of be that guide for me has just been instrumental in my development over the last 5 years. And so lending into that coaching relationship, what do you think are some of the benefits associated with working with a coach? Because I know it's been instrumental in my life, and that I place a high premium on coaching relationships, but I thought, obviously, as a coach, I was wondering if you could provide some insights onto why you think that is the case.
Well, Mike can provide more than insights, because I'd have to be an idiot at this stage after doing that many calls, not to figure out, what holds people back, from achieving success in business or real estate, and what allows people to absolutely crush it. And so I'd be happy to share with you and the listeners what I call the 5 keys, that prevent people from failing to scale in anything, whether it's business or real estate or finances or health or whatever. These 5 things, guys, are universal. And it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or the US, or you're listening to this in the UK or Australia. The universality of these are absolutely the same for anybody that wants to go from where they are to a different place. And let's kick it off with number 1. And I said it before, I'll say it again. The number 1 thing that holds most people back, again, is limiting beliefs. It's that it's going to be hard. It's going to take a long time. What if I lose money? What if it doesn't work out, right? That fear of failure is ultimately one of the biggest things that prevent people from getting started, let alone then going to the next level. So, I'll throw that back to you. When you think of your journey and your ability to have coaches help you work through any limiting beliefs, how's that been for you?
Oh, it's been instrumental. I think a big part of it was believing that I could do something that I wasn't necessarily programmed to do. So I didn't come from an entrepreneurial background. No one really in my family is an entrepreneur. They put a heavy emphasis on education and getting stability within a profession. And so that's the type of mindset that I had going out of college. It was more, get a stable job and really just work my way through the corporate ladder. But I've always had an entrepreneurial itch, and I don't know why that's the case, but I've had it ever since I was young. And, always struggling with that, dichotomy was quite difficult for me. And when I did reach out to the coach that I worked with for several years, he, in fact, was an entrepreneur as well. So he kind of validated the idea that I, in fact, was an entrepreneur, and that was okay. And part of being an entrepreneur means trying new things and failing and, working through the issues as they arise. And so that's something that, I started me down the path of entrepreneurship. And then obviously with the books that I write, I've written several books that he was also instrumental in getting me over the hump as far as understanding that your thought process that no one's going to like it and you suck at writing or whatever. He helped me get over that, because in reality, like when you write your first book, you're not going to be the next J.K. Rowling, but the process of you writing the book benefits you from a variety of different ways, right? You have you get better as a communicator. You're able to become better as putting thoughts together. And when it comes to delivering a message, that skill is valuable regardless of how many books you sell. So I guess those are just some of the limiting beliefs that I was able to overcome as a result of my coaching relationship.
Well, I love that. And yeah, you speak volumes, whether it's writing a book, buying a building, finding a soulmate, achieving a certain net worth. We have these little things called saboteurs or gremlins. And I know you're familiar with them, Raphael, where, it's almost like their job is to throw you under the bus and sabotage you from, moving forward. It's almost like the crabs in the bucket analogy. Anytime a crab tries to crawl out of a bucket, the other crabs in the bucket pull it back down. And so a coach can be instrumental into really, breaking through limiting beliefs, helping you with your identity, helping you not play the comparison game too much, because obviously if you go on any social media channel and you see this one just bought this building and this one bought this one and this one bought this building, Tony Robbins says that comparison is the thief of joy, right? We can't compare ourselves, to someone who's been in the business for 5 or 6 years when we're just getting started, or if we're moving to a new market, or if we're playing in a different asset class, because all apples and oranges are not created equal. So I can't stress enough to the listener that if you don't have a coach, a teacher, a mentor, a trainer, a facilitator helping you with those limiting beliefs, it's going to take a lot longer for you to move to where you want to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've had mentors all through my career, not necessarily a coaching, but just to bounce ideas off of. In a way, they're a coach, but yeah, greatly. I always say they're mentors. They've been I'm in commercial construction arena, and they've been doing that for 50 years. So the wealth of knowledge that they can give me is tremendous.
It's priceless.
Oh, absolutely. And so on a fact that heard you earlier, you're speaking that you had in 37 different states, and they're all using the vehicles of real estate. Can you elaborate on some of the obstacles that the real estate investors struggle with when they're scaling their business?
Yeah, absolutely. And it almost speaks to these same 5 things, because the second thing I'd speak to, Jeff, is really what we call a lack of a strategic plan, right? Because we can come in and help people with limiting beliefs and get them to focus on the right state with the right story or identity, and maybe even raise their standards and, commit to playing full out. But if they don't have a roadmap or a recipe or a blueprint that's going to take them from where they are to where they want to be, again, that's the second reason why people fail. So as many people in these different asset classes, maybe get their first property, that was a huge, orchestration, but now they've kind of done it. What do they want to do from there? So we literally start with the end in mind. How many properties do you want to own? What markets do you want to be in? What asset classes? What's the price per door? Are you going to do it alone or with partners? I mean, there's just so many different modalities of questions that I, as a coach, will take somebody through, that we're able to reverse engineer the plan and then start out with 30, 60, and 90-day goals. And then from there, 6-month goals. And then from there, where are we going to be a year from now? And then what I love to do beyond that is create the vision for where they want to be in 5 or 10 years, right? So we start with, the kind of the near and dear stuff as our immediate focus, but we also, start to think bigger picture. And I think that, as our good friend Tyler Chesser says, people are meant to go big. We're all here on purpose and with purpose as creators to do something, and there are no limits. Take a look at Elon Musk. Take a look at Richard Branson. Take a look at Oprah Winfrey, right? They haven't been tucked in the corner playing small. They're unleashing, but it started with them getting the right beliefs and the right attitude and mindset, coupled with a plan of what they wanted to do in business or in life. And that's really number 2. Does that resonate with you, boys?
Oh, for sure.
1,000%. And that's one of the ideas that has really benefited me over the last, 6 or 7 years since I started this personal development journey, is the idea that, you see the Richard Bransons of the world, you see the Elon Musk, you see all these people who are having significant success. And a lot of times you think there's no possible way that I could even get to that level. But what you don't realize is that it's a compound effect, right? Yep. It just slow, methodical action over and over and over again adds up to massive results. And I read that book by Darren Hardy, and that was just like the trigger for me. It was like, wow, like I can achieve what these guys are doing right now, but it's methodical action over time in a certain direction. And as you mentioned, putting a plan in place. I think in Alice in Wonderland, I remember this quote where I think Alice comes up to the Cheshire Cat, and Cheshire Cat's like, where are you planning to go? It is going to dictate which road you take, but she didn't know where she wanted to go. And the Cheshire Cat's, well, it doesn't matter what road you take then. You don't have a direction in which you're going. So you really, any road you take is going to lead you where you don't know where you want to go. So it's one of those things where you have to have deliberate action in a particular direction, and that takes some planning on the front end. And then from there, just slow, methodical action. It's boring. It's not necessarily the most glamorous thing out there, but you'll look back after a few years and be like, wow, I mean, I can't believe what I've been able to do.
I love the story. I love the analogy to Alice in Wonderland. And it's true because, again, for a lot of people, they need to go up the first 1 or 2 or 3 steps to see steps 4, 5, and 6. And when they scramble up those, guess what? 7, 8, and 9 appear. So again, slow and steady wins the race. And that's why, this isn't a get rich quick thing. Real estate is really a tried and true system that you go out there and you create value, right? And you continually add even more value. Well, money has to come back to you as a byproduct of that value. So if you want a certain net worth, you want to own a certain number of doors, just keep climbing the steps and just keep thinking about Darren Hardy's compound effect, and you can arrive where you want to be. You can even surpass it and go to even new heights. So that's really number 2. Does that make sense?
For sure. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask you was pertaining to just everything you're involved in, because not only do you do coaching, you do real estate, you also own businesses, and you have so many different commitments that are pulling you in a bunch of different directions. So could you tell us a little bit about how you are able to manage and excel within those commitments?
Well, it's like you're teeing up the ball perfectly, because it goes to number 3, which is called systems for support. And most people don't have systems, or they don't spend time creating systems, or they're shotgunning everything, or they're doing it, whenever they feel like doing it. So if number 1 is getting rid of limiting beliefs, number 2 is creating a strategic plan, number 3 is really surrounding yourself with the right partners, the right technology, the right systems, the right processes, and ultimately continuing to kind of individualize them. So when I've got my coaching business, and it's a very, very successful 7-figure coaching business, I've got people and systems that support my outcomes there. There I got my consulting business over here. There I've got, my real estate business over here. There my wife and I, Lisa, we also own a publishing company, and we have an absolute amazing children's book where we've just, cracked selling 60,000 copies in the last year alone. That is an amazing thing in its own right, because that has also turned into a 7-figure business for us, where we've got all of these independent silos, right? But I'm telling you, the systems that allow us to run all of them, let alone the fact that we travel the world at least once a quarter. We're often in the UK or Italy or Hong Kong or Australia. We love to do our winters in Australia. If we didn't have the systems to support all of that, guys, there's just no way in hell that we'd be able to keep up with everything that's needed, from that entrepreneurial aspect. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I've been working on trying to document things, setting aside time throughout the week to sit down and really look at my processes and try to document them in a Word file, then creating a PDF and then putting it in a file. So when I start scaling, it gives me the opportunity to kind of transition over some of those responsibilities to those individuals that will eventually be the support staff to whatever business, I try to grow. So
you really spoke to something super important, and that is roles and responsibilities, right? Mm-hmm. Not all people are created equal. And my skill set to do certain things is a lot different than maybe yours or Jeff's, right? So I'm the guy that likes to go out there and, let's say, I love the thrill of the chase. I love to find deals, right? Ask me to underwrite deals, and it's not my favorite cup of tea, right? I can do it to a certain extent, but that's not what I want to be doing all day, right? For other people, they don't like looking at deals and they don't like underwriting deals, but they love raising capital. Well, let's do that, right? If that's your passion and your skill set, let's do that. For others, it's running the business plan or running the asset. So again, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You've got to absolutely understand what is your core competence and what do you love getting up and doing every day? And then how do you surround yourself with the right people, partners, systems, technology to handle some things that maybe you're not the best at? Does that resonate?
Definitely. And the crazy thing is too, it's introspection. And sometimes it takes you sitting down and thinking about it. And it's not a pleasant experience because, as type A performers and high performers, you don't want to admit you're bad at anything. At least that's how I feel. Like, I don't want to ever admit that I am bad at something. But in reality, there's a lot of things I'm terrible at, but that I shouldn't be doing. And so coming to that realization sometimes is difficult. And so if you guys are listening out there and you are type A performers, if you are, really always pushing the boundary in what you are trying to accomplish, it's okay to admit that you're not good at stuff. I
love that you said that. I'll just, stack on top of that, we often say we all have strengths and weaknesses, right? Strengths are your superpower. Weaknesses are a sign from the universe to surround yourself with people that are different to you. We often talk about personality profiles. We'll talk about, different skill sets. We'll talk about different people's model of the world. It's the lens they see through. So if you're building a small business, a medium-sized business, or a big business, you really want your skill sets to complement each other and not everybody do the same core competency, because then, it's almost like having too many chefs in the kitchen, too many cooks in the kitchen. You really can't, put out the best meal if everybody is, the guy that's cooking the steak. You need people with the salad, the potatoes, the soups, the appetizers, the desserts, and everything in between.
Absolutely. So one thing that I was excited to get to ask you, if you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give your younger self who's starting out?
How much time do we have, Jeff?
Yeah.
I love that question. I really honor you boys for asking that, because, man, I'm telling you, there is so much to be understood for how creative we all can be when we don't conform to what other people tell us to do. I was told to go to university, get a good job, move up the ladder. I became the director of operations. I had the company car, the company expense account. I had tickets to the NHL hockey games. I mean, for most people, they think that, that would be a phenomenal level of success. But I kept looking around at some of the people around me who were, buying, hotels or starting businesses or having a side hustle. Maybe they worked a W-2 over here, but they had a home-based business or an e-commerce business or something going on weekends. And I'd always look around and I, was always fascinated by who were the core, W-2 9-to-5ers that were there till they were 65. They were going to get the 401k rocking and save for retirement and then kind of go off and live their life, versus the people that found a way to really realize that that is an old model that maybe came from times outside of the Depression or after the World Wars, where our parents or our grandparents said, you got to play it safe. You got to be careful. You want to save for a rainy day, versus really understanding that we're all born entrepreneurial. That if you go back just a few hundred years, guys, you were either a butcher, a baker, a farmer, you were a blacksmith, and you put shoes on horses. I mean, people were predominantly entrepreneurs until the Industrial Revolution. And then we all started to go and work in factories or going to work in office towers, making other people rich. So if I could tell my younger self anything, I would unleash my inner entrepreneur a heck of a lot earlier than I did, because I stayed in corporate for a long time until ultimately, the universe whacked me over the head with a 2x4. And I had this hiccup where I had to go out there and learn how to be an entrepreneur to make back that money to move forward. Does that make sense?
1000%. And not to say that, the corporate environment doesn't have any value, because I've learned a ton during the 5 years that I was at the company that I was at. I mean,
sure,
not just about, what I was doing, but about how to be an effective individual. It was a high performing environment. I was surrounded by people who were very intelligent and really supported, me as a team member. But what I realized, at least myself, when I was looking around me, is that I would look at people who had been in that position for 20, 30 years. And then I compared that and said, is that a place I want to be? Would I be okay if I was 50 years old or 55 years old and I was in that particular position and doing that type of work? And, and I came to the realization that I was not, and it was not something that I was interested in. And, the creative opportunity was just not there. And I've always felt very creative. And as an entrepreneur, you're kind of naturally creative. And I felt like that was, if I would continue along that path for an extended period of time, I would be constricted in that opportunity. And so that was the realization I came to. I'm sure you had a similar realization when you had that, when you're performing that analysis, right, Trevor?
Well, absolutely. And again, I don't want to tar everyone with the same brush. For some people, that 9-to-5 is a godsend, because maybe they don't have the entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe they had a tougher upbringing. Maybe they've got a ton of kids. Maybe their circumstances are different. But I always say different strokes for different folks. But I also don't want to paint the picture that that's the only way to eke out an existence, sure, right? Where you're capped at, how much money you can make, or you're capped at how many weeks off you have to travel a year, or you're capped at how much bonus money you can make, or, a black swan event comes along and you're told to, go home. Or, I've had people get furloughed and get laid off where, now they got to scramble to figure out what they're going to do next. Do they go back to the corporate arena? Do they unleash their entrepreneurial selves? And again, that's why having a coach or somebody like a mentor to talk to can really help whether you're trying to figure it out outside of a crisis or where you're trying to figure it out while you're in the crisis, the world is sped up so fast, guys. We've got so much coming at us that sometimes it can be hard to figure out what's best. And what's best for some people today might change 5 years down the road or maybe 10 years down the road. So I'm a big believer in, really listening to great podcasts like this, really reading great books, going to personal growth events, working with coaches, where you don't have this myopic view of this is the only way life can be, but where we widen that a little bit and you start to look around and seeing what else is possible. And that's the song sheet I sing from.
That's awesome. Thanks for that insight, Trevor, really. One of the things that we like to ask our interviewees is, what was one of the most impactful books you've ever read? We've talked about a few here, but I'd love to hear your, I guess, number one or number two book that you would like to share.
Well, thank you. And again, I got to go back to the fact that leaders are readers, and books really did change my paradigm, reading things like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That by far, gentlemen, is my all-time favorite book. I've read it over 50 times. I have a copy of it sitting here on my desk. I have the audio program. My kids can recite passages and stories from it. I mean, that's been my Bible. And I'm telling you, I know it was written back in, the 20s and 30s of the 1900s, but so much of that still applies to us today. And it will apply to people, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now. So outside of Think and Grow Rich, I think the Little Purple Book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, obviously a staple for most of us. On top of that, books like Personal Power by Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within, those are really, great books as well as some of the other things out there that really talk around, having a high performance, peak performance mindset. Books about guys like Michael Jordan or my childhood hero in Canada, Wayne Gretzky. These people, thought differently that allowed them to behave differently to go out there and make a tremendous amount of impact and income. And so I think, whether you're reading any of these classics or there's something that is, appealing to you or calls your name, we have a duty to either check it out and read it or at least, listen to the audio version, because I'm more of an audio learner, right? So the more books I can listen to, I don't know what it is, but the more content I'm able to retain and, use versus if I were to open a book and read, because sometimes that puts me to sleep in all transparency.
Oh, 100%. And really Audible has been a godsend, because
Yes.
you can listen to an Audible book. I do it all the time where I go to the gym and I'm throwing on an Audible book. I'm washing dishes. I put on an Audible book, so it allows you to consume content outside of just sitting down and reading a book. And especially if you're an audio learner, that's a great way to do that. And I really like the fact that you said learning from other people in history. I love reading biographies, especially for those individuals who've made an impact in some way within the world, whether that's, world leaders or business leaders or even religious leaders. So I like learning about their background, because it gives you an idea of what their thought process was at critical junctures within their life, because that's going to be able to color the way that you approach problems in the future. Because, okay, what did Nelson Mandela do? What did the chief executive of Disney do in this particular situation? And if you start seeing some patterns and some rhythms, I mean, it could really impact your decision-making going forward. And so I'm a big proponent of biographies, in particular of those individuals who really made an impact.
There's a great quote that I'll stack on top of that, because I love how you bring that up is, again, it comes from Tony, where he says, success leaves clues. And again, the listeners want to write that down. Success leaves clues, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel in real estate. We don't have to reinvent the wheel in business. We can take a look at what other people have done before us, look at the commonalities, make sure we're crystal clear on what we don't want to make room for what we do want. And then it comes down to execution. So that's awesome.
100% agree with you, and don't reinvent the wheel. That's for sure. There's so many people before us that just has trudged the way and spent all the time figuring out take the left, take the right, and how to get to the end. I mean, actually, my mentor told me that numerous times. You're trying to reinvent the wheel, and just don't do that. I've already laid it out for you. Here's your map. Go find the treasure chest at the end.
Learn from others. Yeah. Again, they've already put in the sweat. Like, why would you go through the heartache if you can just learn from someone else and save yourself years of time, right? Compressing years into days, as Trevors like to say. So,
yeah. And speaking of the treasure chest, to start rounding out the podcast, we have a commercial real estate treasure chest. It's a repository of things that people I'd like to add is someone just added a due diligence list. It was something that simple for a multifamily thing. I didn't know if there was anything that you would like to share with us and give to the treasure chest.
Absolutely. A treasure chest is exactly that. It's a treasure. And one of the greatest gifts that I'd give you, or, all of the listeners, really speaks to number 4 on that list of 5 things. And it's something, Raphael's familiar with, and it's called the productivity pyramid. And guys, this is a game changer for anyone that is a real estate investor, an entrepreneur, a business owner, or anybody that really wants to understand what they do with time. Because for most people, they spend more time planning their vacation to Mexico than they do planning their business or their career or their life. So what I've done is I've taken this pyramid, right? Think about it like a triangle, and I've broken it down into 4 sections. So starting at the bottom is what we call, the things where you're doing something called low or no value. Then in stage 2, we identify what your low dollar activities are. From there, we move to stage 3, identifying what your high dollar activities are. And then that little space at the top of the pyramid at the peak is what we refer to as high lifetime activities or high lifetime value. Because as a high performance coach, and after doing 30,000 coaching sessions, I can tell you that the quality of somebody's results in real estate or business will be in direct proportion to where they spend their time. And most people suck at time management because there's something I teach called the rule of 168. And if you're not familiar with that rule, it's that we all have 168 hours a week. You've got them. I've got them. Oprah's got them. Elon Musk's got them, and it's really that we sleep for a bunch of those hours. We eat, we pay the bills, we might play with the kids, but what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your real estate time? And are you doing the high impact, high income activities that can, absolutely explode your results? Because I find that most people are doing busy work. They're doing their website, or they're making business cards, or they're going to meetups without any real outcomes or objectives. When you start to use this pyramid, and I'm happy to give it to you guys to put into the treasure chest, you start to get a real handle on where you've been spending your time and where you should be spending your time. And that's when the light bulbs go off, and you can start to see, again, what are the roles and responsibilities that you've got? What are your zones of genius? How much time do you have to work on stuff? Because it'll ultimately come back to what Raphael said in terms of the compound effect. Even if you're a W-2 employee and you're only working on 4 hours a week, over the course of a month, that's 16 hours. Well, what could you and should you be doing with that time? So I'm happy to give that to the listener and happy to give that to you boys. And let's pop that in the treasure chest.
That's awesome. And I know that could benefit a lot of people, because that's something that when I was discussing with you and Tyler, was obviously a realization that I came to. There was a lot of things that I was doing in my life that I really shouldn't have been doing, low to no value activities. And so having that visual representation of that really helped me kind of realize, okay, well, all these things that I had been doing is probably not something I should be doing going forward. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to summarize that, there are things that we should do. There are things we should delay. There are things we should delegate. And yes, there are things that we should dump altogether. So as you start to get your head around what should you be doing, delaying, delegating, or dumping, it starts to help you to refine your calendar. And then ultimately it comes down to number 5. And the 5th thing that I'll say is really execution, right? Because we can get rid of your limiting beliefs. We can create the strategic plan. We can create systems for support. We can help you with your productivity pyramid and time management. But if you're not out there executing on what it is that we've set you up to execute on, you're really fooling yourself. So step 5 is really, are you out there doing what you should be doing, when you should be doing it, and are you measuring your progress, right? You got to measure your progress. Are you on track or are you off track, right? Because ultimately, sometimes we all have to course correct. But if you were really to get rid of your limiting beliefs, create the strategic plan, create systems for support, optimize your time management, and go and execute on it, there's nothing that you can't do as a real estate investor.
That's phenomenal advice. Thanks so much, Trevor. Well, This leads us to the end of the interview. I wish we could talk for another hour, 2 hours, however long, but really we just do appreciate all the information and insight that you've shared within this compressed time frame. But I just wanted to, give you the opportunity to say, well, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, learn more about what you do, what's the best way to do that?
Well, thanks again for having me on the show. You guys are phenomenal, and I love the work you do. And I know that you are here to help other people win the game of real estate and the game of life. So just want to extend, huge props to you. For anyone that wants to find out more about me, or, perhaps even investigate how a coaching structure could support them, just go to my website. It's www.trevormcgregor.com. That's TrevorMcGregor.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm often, standing on stages somewhere in the US presenting this stuff to a group of, real estate investors or business owners. So I hope to meet some of the listeners there, because I really do believe that, we're all here on purpose and with purpose to go to the next level, right? So it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. If you're new to real estate, if you're an intermediate, if you're an expert, there's always another level. And what fuels you to go up to the next level is really getting excited about it, being hungry, right? And really realizing, again, that you get to work with great people in this real estate arena, like brokers, like, investors, property managers, lenders, insurance people. So if you love people and you love money, I really do believe that you've got to check in with your hunger, your desire, your passion, and then surround yourself with people, like Raphael and like Jeff, to fuel that fire to keep going further forward.
Awesome, Trevor. Really. And you guys should definitely reach out to Trevor. I mean, again, I've gained a ton of value from knowing Trevor over these last pretty much a year now, which is pretty crazy to believe. But
yes,
it's really just amazing the work he does, and I'm honored to know him. And we'll be sharing all the links that Trevor just mentioned in the description below. So if you're watching this on a podcast format, it's going to be in the Apple Podcast description, or if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description as well. So again, Trevor, thank you so much for stopping by. We really do appreciate everything you do for the investor community. One thing I wanted to share was, if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps with the YouTube algorithm and ensures more and more people can learn about the many facets of commercial real estate. If you're watching this, or listening to this, I should say, on Apple Podcasts, again, subscribe to the channel and leave a 5-star review. It really helps project this message to more and more people. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you guys next week.